That was Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday in Mexico City. Now, he's already on his way back after a busy 36 hours where Canada and Mexico announced a deal to deepen trade ties. Now, hanging over that trip is the ongoing negotiation with the U.S. to remove tariffs on Canadian goods. Now, as you heard earlier, the minister responsible for trade with the U.S., Dominic LeBlanc, also told reporters that Canada is starting the consultation process to review the trilateral trade agreement known as CUSMA. So, is Canada shoring up support with Mexico just in case the North American pact falls apart? Or is Carney trying to create a united front as both countries sit down with the U.S. to renegotiate that continental trade agreement? Let's ask the front bench. Sabrina Grover was a federal Liberal candidate in the 2021 election. She's a senior advisor at North Star Public Affairs. Melanie Paradis is a former communications director to Aaron O'Toole. She's now the president of Texture Communications. And former interim NDP national director Carl Belanger is here. He's now the president of Traction Strategies. Thank you all. Welcome to Friday, everyone. Sabrina, today's news feels like they had a meeting to agree to have another meeting. Do you think it was enough?
I don't think just the one meeting was enough, no, but I think it is certainly a step in the right direction to realign relationships and a strategic alliance with Mexico that we have really put to the sidelines for the duration of NAFTA and really the first part of CUSMA. I think that we have so over-relied on our relationship with the United States and just assumed that it would always be there, that Mexico hasn't been important. But with Claudia Sheinbaum in particular, making so many progressive internal reforms in Mexico, I think Mexico looks like a really, really optimal trading partner right now. Specifically, when you look at industries that are hurting in Canada, like agriculture, like canola, like some of those biofuel, renewable sources, that's a great opportunity for us to double down on our relationship with Mexico. I don't think Mexico is going to be the only partner that we, create new relationships with. Obviously, we've got Europe on the docket as well, but I certainly think in advance of 2026, this is an important strategic move.
Melanie, how do you think this plays when the Prime Minister gets back to Canada and goes in the House? Do you think that Parliament will look at this and say, okay, great job?
I'm sure it won't be as simple as that, unfortunately, for him. Now, I think that going into the negotiations with the United States, one of the things that was also announced is the opening up of consultations with businesses around the CUSMA negotiations. And this is a really important moment for businesses across the country in a variety of different sectors to make their both opportunities for leverage as well as their vulnerabilities, their risk exposure on trade known to the government, so that when they go to the table with the Americans, they're better equipped to have negotiating powers and to most importantly have leverage. One of the challenges that we have, though, with leverage is we've for the past 15 years, we've not been able to get our products to market, whether that's oil and gas or minerals. We need to be able to show the Americans that we can actually do that. And that's why getting some wins on major projects right now is going to be really important before these negotiations start next year.
Carl, do you think that this is Canada trying to make sure that they have a backstop to the potential falling apart, if that happens, of the trilateral trade agreement?
Well, maybe, but we won't replace the United States market with Mexico. It's not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. But it was long overdue, that's for sure. I, for one, was really puzzled when politicians in Canada, namely Premier Doug Ford, was saying, we need to throw Mexico under the bus. We don't need them. Donald Trump played that game, pitting Canada against Mexico in the first round of CUSMA negotiations. So it is smart to get closer to Mexico, to have some kind of united front. And from a trade perspective, Mexico is also the gateway to the rest of South America, Latin America. It's a growing market there. There's a lot of potential, and we need to diversify. So we don't need to restrict ourselves to just Europe. Mexico is a great partner. We need to get closer to them. And I think that's a great step that the Prime Minister did today.
It's interesting because in our previous discussion on this earlier in the show, we had the former Mexican ambassador to the U.S. talk about making sure that outwardly it didn't look like we're ganging up on the U.S. because they're watching this. And I can't help, Sabrina, but think of how U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, was in Halifax this week and saying that he was disappointed to hear the talk of elbows up or that we're in a trade war. So I'm wondering what you think about how the Carney government is trying to frame all of this and, almost downplaying it so that it doesn't get traction in the U.S.
Yeah, I think the communications exercise around this trading relationship with the United States is just as important as what actually comes out of anything. And I think what's important about that is, when you look at the U.S. context, the goalposts are still going to shift between now and when we arrive at a actual negotiation in 2026. And a lot of that has to do with the internal arrangement of what's going to happen in the United States, right? I think that Donald Trump doesn't just look outwardly to the world and say, well, like, where can I, mingle or like make waves today? I think he's also looking internally at the domestic situation in the United States, and he's going to say, okay, what does the midterms look like? Which states do I need to win? Mm-hmm. Where does that win come from? How can I make sure that when I think about external trading relationships with Canada, that I can guarantee myself a win? So it's so evolving in terms of how we're going to manage the United States relationship. And I think for Mark Carney, the best thing that we can do is bolster and strengthen Canada's resolve, either internally, domestically, and with these partners, because you just never know what's coming down the pipeline with the U.S.
Melanie, what do you think?
Look, I think that diversifying our trade is always a good idea. Building relationships with Europe, with Mexico, with other friendly governments is a really important thing for Canada to do. Obviously, Mark Carney campaigned on getting a good deal with the Americans, and he hasn't shown any progress towards that yet. And that's going to be really important going into the next parliamentary session.
Carl, you get the last 30 on this.
Yeah, Sandra raised a good point about the goalpost shifting, and they'll shift again and again and again and again. It's like we're playing Quidditch, so maybe we should stop playing that game and do what's important for Canada.
Wow. He's saying, okay, first of all, I don't think Sabrina mentioned Harry Potter, but fine.
No,
okay.
She mentioned goalposts.
Yeah, she mentioned goalposts. I mean, do people know what Quidditch is?
Well,
am I saying it properly?
Quidditch.
Quidditch, and I'm sure we will get viewer feedback on this one.